Hi, I'm Supermoon Tarot, and it is incredibly late, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a soft-spoken intro, just to be kind and loving and respectful. But today we are gonna be looking at what psychic abilities do you need to tap into? Ooh, I felt it was very Halloween related because we're usually unaware of how many abilities there are, how useful they basically can be to utilize them, especially when we're conscious of them, and how much they create a domino effect of basically opening you up for other abilities that you can benefit from even more. That's why I'm very passionate about the stuff I talk about in my courses, because all of those basically were for me like a domino effect of one positive, like meditation led to me being a good tarot reader, which led to me to being a good spirit realm traveler, and so on and so forth. Like, you know what I mean? The list goes on and on. So, I'm excited to get into this because it will really let us see where you're at, like the subtext of your state of mind. We'll talk about techniques, how to basically get into using those abilities, what those abilities exactly mean, and how you're benefiting from them. And honestly, I just am very passionate about this subject. And speaking of this type of subject and Halloween stuff, if you are interested in supporting me, but also gaining some additional exclusive stuff that you can benefit from, I have a Patreon. I'm always adding to it. It is over like 200 videos of meditations, Reiki and coding. We go over a lot of Akashic Records information. It's a lot of question asking, then looking up the answers, talking to spirit guides, channeling, you name it. It's just a really diverse, big, awesome place over there. And this month I've been focusing more on this type of subject. So I just did 2 videos over there on vampires, part 1, and demons. And we go into basically like, what's the situation with them? Like, how do they navigate? How do they work? Are they even real? You get the gist. I think last time I talked about how I also did mermaids. Oh, and basically what does it mean when there are random staircases and doors in like forests and what that means. So I'm just letting you know that's all available. Anyways, let's go back to our card reading. Also please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out like you would not believe. We've got group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Take a second, think about what psychic ability do I need? Just like hold the question in intention. You can even ask your spirit guides to help. Then pick the group that you resonate with most. I'm going to give you a moment to do so. Now that you have, you can skip to the designated group, as well as all that other information we talked about that can be found down below in the description. But let's get started with group number 1. Group number 1. Let's find out what psychic abilities do you need to tap into by looking at the cards. So our cards are King of Swords, that's what it is. Okay, sorry. Just thinking about my elements. Then we have the Page of Swords, all upright. Ooh, and the Ace of Pentacles. Please sound off in the comments below. Do you have a deck, like a tarot deck, that you especially love, but while it is beautiful, sometimes it's hard to remember which one's which? I would love to know, and please feel free to leave the name of it. But give me 1 second to look at the details of everything, and I will be with you in 1 moment. okay, this is great. This starts off like, hey, we're over here. Oh, wait, we're going to be going down this other road. Psych! We're back to where we began, but we grew so much more. Think of it as like, you have a starting point, you think you're taking a train, and guess what? We're actually interstellar space traveling. So let's get into this with and this will make sense in a moment. So first we start off with the Page of Swords, which I did get confirmation from my spirit guide that this is about you taking like an interest in divination. And I thought this was really interesting because I thought I was going to talk about other psychic abilities and add on to it, but your already natural interest in wanting to explore that and expand upon that idea shows already a starting point of your natural intuition of where you're like meant to go. But hold on to that idea for a second. We're going to come back to that. So anyways, I can see with it being a page, there's already some studying of some kind. And the general idea is like, it's not so much divination, it's like the desire to know what's going to happen in the future. So it's not just like the craft, you could do anything. You could do tarot, you could do charms, you could dream, it could be anything. It's the idea that you want to know, okay, how can I anticipate the future and then like benefit and learn from it, but like definitely like just the fascination that you can. Now here's the thing though, we do have a sword popping up much stronger than like the moon or something like that. So there's a much stronger part of your personality and the way you work with divination where it's almost like a logical, but of course this is here, so therefore it means this. So it's not like you're navigating your intuition in more of a flowy, I don't know quite how to explain it, I feel it, I get images in my head, energies. You're more operating on what would almost be borderline like a mentalist. I will say this though, I did ask my spirit guide if that's sort of like a route you want to go down, and they said no, they're not doing that. Like, it feels like logic to them, but that doesn't mean that's actually what they're doing. They're not making assumptions based on like broadened ideas or the most likely thing. It's like you think that's what you're doing. That's how it feels. There's like, let's say you're doing tarot cards. It's logical that you look over here and go, well, there's evidence over here and that supports that idea. So that makes sense that the cards are talking about this idea. There's enough things proving that. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's just like an intelligence to the way you read. But part of you feels like, when we talk about this student mode, there's like two different things I'm picking up. On one hand, there's two possibilities. There's one version of some of you that are enjoying this card reading that is using their intuition. They're feeling really confident about them, or not confident, they're happy with the results they're getting in some ways, but they're not trusting, despite all of the evidence, that they're reading their intuition correctly, because they're more like depending on like the logical side, or like it's more like they're distrustful of the intuition side. Let me focus on that. More distrustful of the intuition side. That's what it feels like. But then there is another group of you guys where, because when it comes to tarot, I can use the same card and talk about 50 million different subjects. It really just depends. It feels like there's too many options, and there's a part of you that gets overwhelmed by all the options, and you'd like a stronger intuition, flowy, vibey energy part of yourself coming through to help navigate all the options, so it's a lot easier. So what do we do from that? Because you want to grow in your ability to see in the future, you're using divination practices. We're going to start with the Ace of Pentacles. We want to plant a mental seed in you that can grow so you can gain trust in your intuition, and your intuition can grow. Because this is something really interesting with psychic abilities. They really do hinge on allowing yourself sort of to believe, like suspension of disbelief, I guess you could say. And you have to kind of go out on a whim and take that leap of, I don't want to say like leap of faith, but you get the gist, like popping up and being like, okay, I guess this is what it could be, and just trying it out. And then eventually, from enough time of seeing, again, back to that logical part of your brain, oh, look how many times I got it right. Clearly, whenever I felt this way, that was my intuition working. And there's like a part of you that starts to look for the signs of what that felt like and how to navigate that. So how do we plant that seed? You want to start with something that you can control when it comes to seeing the future. So, for example, if you really like tarot cards speak to you, you can work with charms. Things you want something not like a pendulum, something that's a little more broader of throwing a lot of information in front of you. Oracle cards. Please sound off in the comments below other types of divinations. You're welcome to use your dream journal in some way, but you want something that's like throwing a lot of information at you and isn't just like a yes or no situation. Then what you're going to do is you're going to just like regularly utilize it, like all the time, constantly exercise your ability to look into the future. And what you're going to do is you're going to be very succinct with how you go with your intuition. So what I mean by that is you're going to say like, this time when I use my intuition, I'm only going to pick cards and stuff like that based on feelings. And then you're going to write down your results in like a little notebook and be like, okay, so I felt this time, this is how it felt, these were the results. And then you're going to look into being like, was that right? Was that not right? And how many times, like percentage wise, was I more right than wrong? Then you're going to do another time where, again, same concept, you're looking into the future, you're writing down the results, but you pick something like, this is really interesting. Sometimes when people know, it isn't always through a feeling of knowing. Sometimes it's almost like you just say something. You're like, I just think this will happen. And you're saying it, but you're not feeling a connection to it. You're just putting out a random idea. To you, you feel super detached from it. You're just like, you feel like you're just saying something random out into the open. It didn't feel like a great pull, great connection. It's like your part of you from the logical part of your mind wants to feel that, but that doesn't mean that's how it actually works when it comes to your psychic abilities. And you're going to practice that method. Same concept, look at the results, what's the answer, and then you're going to start to integrate these things once you found after so many times that you saw the results of it getting right and wrong. Okay, when it was right, what were the feelings that you felt pulled you towards that idea? Could you mimic that? Could you start to intertwine that idea of sometimes going towards certain feelings, sometimes going through random information? I will tell you this with the divination, I'm getting really strongly pulled to, you need to just sort of throw things randomly out there at times. You just need to be like, I think this is what I feel. It doesn't have to be a strong image, nothing. It can seem like you're just taking a guess in the dark. But you're going to do that and start to see that what you think you need to feel or experience might not be what you thought it was going to be. But nonetheless, over time with enough practice and using your intuition to back up everything that you have already over here, will start to strengthen. And again, when we talk about that seed being planted, it will start to grow, and it will go from feeling like, yeah, I'm trying to look into the future, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not confident, to being like, of course I'm confident. I have all this information. I know how to navigate my feelings, and I've finally detached from what I think it needs to be. I've shown myself proof. I've seen results. I started to understand what worked and didn't work. But this is where it gets really interesting. Despite your intuition growing, this isn't about the end result being like, you're going to grow your intuition and that's what's making you really good at divination. No, this is just a supporter plant, kind of like like when people get like plants to kind of act as like a friend, like me and Mon, like something that can like be there for you and connect, and people really feel a lot of joy in taking care of things, kind of thing. But this intuition actually brings out what we have over here in the what's it called, the King of Swords. So you end up really diving deeper, even deeper in the informational part of your brain. And you actually learn that this was a version of intuition all along. And again, what you just assume and what you feel like when you try to explain to people is just like, well, it's logical. It's not. To look into the future isn't something that you can, just because somebody else got left by their partner, that doesn't mean the next person you read for, that's going to happen to them. Do you see what I'm saying here? It really is such a case by case situation. And over time, you learn that you kind of just needed this extra support to bring out what was naturally there. And that part of yourself grows exponentially. And again, this isn't just somebody who has a lot of information on how to use their divination and stuff like that. It's not like that. It's more like there's a part of your brain that when you're looking through the information, it feels very like, well, okay, so I see orange over here, I see orange over here. Okay, logically, those are running into each other, so we have a whole landscape going on. So it looks like maybe these two are together, and to you, it just seems obvious. That's very much the vibe I get, obvious, but it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and this helps you get out of your head enough, like you're too smart for your own good, basically, and ends up making you even more of a detailed and confident person that can look for more information and more and see even more going on there. And so the beautiful thing is you can actually use this ability going forward to navigate other skills. This is like kind of a bit of the holy grail when it comes to having abilities, when it comes to if you're interested in trying out other psychic abilities. And what I mean by that statement basically is this part of you is able to sense what it means to like when you go to approach a psychic ability, it's like you're approaching it like a scientist or like a detective, where you're able to be like, okay, well, I know how to notice something, think about it, put it in a compartment, what worked, what didn't work, what are ideas that branch off that idea, what can I understand about those ideas. It's like you see the connecting web. So I would recommend, after you feel like more confident in your ability to read in the future, because again of the support you got from your intuition, start to navigate like, what would it feel like to push your inner being outside of yourself, push it in front of you, and see what snacks are in the grocery aisle in front of you, you know what I mean? And before you're even there, and just try that and think again, this is where you'd be logical. You'd be like, well, logically I would feel the energy leaving my body. Or logically, maybe I'm already anticipating the snacks. Am I anticipating the snacks because I've been there before? Or is there part of my brain that's actually tapping into inner knowing? Do you see what I'm saying here? It's a much easier for people like you to navigate into the next step by coming to that type of thought process. So it's like really cool. Anyways, I love this for you. It starts off as like a fun interest, and it's just like a mountain and ocean of other stuff. A good example is actually this reading. We only had 3 cards, and look at all this extra stuff we got. So please let me know in the comments what you think below. I'd love to know what divination practice you are using or how you are utilizing looking into the future. Dreams do count, but you want something like tangible to work with. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. I love you to pieces. I'll see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2, let's find out what psychic abilities do you need to tap into by looking at the cards. We have 4 of Pentacles in reverse. We have Queen of Swords upright. That's an interesting combo. Ooh, and 5 of Pentacles in reverse. This is quite the imagery. Give me just one moment to look at the details, and I will be with you in 1 moment. Okay, so first we're going to start off with the 4 of Pentacles in reverse, which is a little bit of a sad image. It's sort of like where you're at type of thing, which is really interesting because when we talk about this subject, this question, just for this video alone, it's what psychic abilities do you need? You'd be shocked not only how many different kinds there are out there, but how much they deeply benefit your life, which is why I'm just putting it out there. That's why I have the courses. That's why I'm such a fan of diving deeper into them and expanding them. Like, I'm passionate about this. But in the Four of Pentacles in reverse, we can see somebody who doesn't feel they want to kind of release what's close to their chest. And this is like a combination of anything from, like, traditionally in the card can be like money and resources, but I also get a strong vibe of like there's parts of you just don't feel like you can exhaust, like a lack of feeling open or vulnerability, or like there's a part of you that feels if you let go of some stuff you don't want to face for yourself, almost like an avoidance of something that maybe bad happened to you, or some intense heavy stuff you've experienced, that somehow you'll either like fall apart or you just don't want to face it, or like whatever the situation is. But not only in reverse do we see it pulling down this individual and it's weighing them down, because I do want to be clear, it's not a negative thing if you just don't feel like you have the energy or resources to express yourself in a certain way, or be the type of person that can interact with others in a certain way, because that's just not where you're at. But in this way, it's like really pulling you down. And if we can see this imagery right here in their legs, you can see the wall behind them. It's just wearing you thin. Like, it's not working anymore for you. And you're kind of not sure what to do because you're not quite sure how to let go this lacking mindset. And it's also creating sort of like an energetic, emotional dysfunction internally in you that's just not working. It's adding up in other areas of your life. So we have over here our psychic ability popping up in the Queen of Swords. And it's really interesting because it's kind of similar to the last card reading I said. It's like kind of like a gateway to other things. What I mean by that is this in the Queen of Swords is you learning the ability to read other people. And I don't mean in a fun, like, when people are like, oh, they read me, or the cards read me, that type of thing. I mean more of being able to look at as an individual and take in as much information as possible. But this is important. How do you do that and develop that ability? But also, what is like the purpose of it? Because people, again, don't realize, yes, it is a psychic ability to just look at someone and like basically have all this information. And I'm not talking about divination of in the future, like you're looking at what they can do in the future. We're talking about right now, who they are, why they are the way they are because of what they've experienced, that type of thing. So when you are practicing this, you're going to take on the Queen of Swords mentality. And first I'm so sorry, I don't know if you can hear my cat. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're just going to move forward. Anyways, going on. You're going to practice this first on other people, but you want to be extremely broad with how you observe people. You want to acknowledge traits that you feel would be considered like admirable, but you also want to acknowledge traits that you maybe don't admire, to put it lightly. But again, we're not talking about Queen of Swords in reverse, who is she's very intelligent, but she uses her intelligence in a harsh way, a critical way. You're not looking at people to make observations and then judge observations. You're making observations and then you're just acknowledging them. So the way you're going to go about doing this is, at first, it's going to be incredibly logical. You're going to at first kind of acknowledge whenever they talk. You're going to hear them say like a sentence, the tone of it, what they're expressing themselves, and you're going to see how many things can you sort of observe or make admirable and not admirable. You don't even have to view it that way. I'm just giving some categories. Just think whatever you can gain from a few sentences that they're expressing. Do they seem like they're open to multiple choices? Do they seem like they're very quick with their decision making? Do you feel like they're very smart? Do you feel like maybe they seem defensive? Whatever you see popping up, Then we also want to look at their actions. Anything they've told you recently, they've done about their weekend or not done. Again, you're not making judgments. You're not saying how you think it should be. Everyone gets to live their own life how they want to live it. You're just putting your brain in a mindset where you're able to gain a lot from very little. And so what happens is, go figure with pretty much everything in life, you're basically setting the intention. And it's really good to set this intention internally, that with practice and this intention set that you would like to read people, eventually it goes from them needing to express themselves for a period of time to they just walk in a room, and by the tiniest, them coming into the room, from a combination of you can't explain why you know it, to energy, to like a small little quirk they expressed in a millisecond, you just know a lot of things about them. So you're practicing on like a longer term scale at first, and then you're making, over time, you're kind of getting your brain into a certain headset and a mindset. And again, you want to set that intention that you would like to be able to know this stuff and have this stuff activated. You're saying to your brain, I'd like to open the part of me that, removes these blockages and is able to take on these awarenesses and stuff like that. But what happens is, not only do you gain the ability to observe and read people, and again, I want to say this again, we're not judging people. We're not getting into a headspace of harshness or judgment or control. Sorry about that again. Again, my cat is just wanting me to go play with them, and I'm like, not right now. So don't mind if you hear them in the background. Anyways, but you're going to then take these abilities that you've learned that have gone beyond just being an observational person, that then activate from practicing an intention set within you. And you're also welcome to ask your spirit guides or whoever you like to work with, hey, can you help open me up in any way, help me in any kind of, send me some signs, let me know. You're going to then realize that when a person, you're able to understand them in that kind of way, there, just like we always talk about tarot cards, there is always subtext. When we have subtext of what a person is potentially in the headspace of, again, we're not trying to jump to conclusions of, are they a good friend? Are they not a good friend? What would they be like? Again, that's very judgmental depending on the perspective. We're talking about you're able to say and figure out, okay, well, if you're like this, then this is probably the best job for you. Well, I see from just a little bit of, you're developing your psychic abilities, I see that from just a second being with you, I am acknowledging that something happened in your past, and on some level, whether you're aware of it or not, you operate from acknowledging that past. So it seems like it might be a good idea when interacting, I can acknowledge and come at you from understanding that past, like come meet you in the past and then help bring you into the present. Because I might come to you from just the present perspective, and if you're in the past, there might accidentally be confrontation, and this is like a nice little melting way of compromising and meeting them halfway to help pull them up. Or they might have skills that you are aware that you can pull out of them. It's almost like you're the one that will soon know how to identify their psychic abilities and bring it out of them. Do you see what I'm saying here? But that's just the beginning of when you have the knowledge, there's so much you can do with it in order to expand upon it. It's very similar when people are really good at reading astrology and they are looking at someone's charts. They feel like, oh, I can navigate you in the right way for manifestation, whatever. It's that same concept. It's just instead of using astrology, you would use it through developing this ability. Now, we talked about using this on other people, but you are going to actually eventually navigate this to yourself when you feel ready. You're going to basically, like the Queen of Swords, how she just sort of cuts through all of the protective barriers we have up, or what people would consider socially rude. She basically is like, I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't want to waste your time. So here's the truth. Here's the information. Once you're able to see that into other people, eventually you'll be skilled enough to kind of push through your own barriers and see through it for yourself. Because the stuff you're holding on to, you're not ready to have that conversation. You're not ready to see it without judgment. Like, you'll judge yourself for it. And this is you getting into a better headspace, examining the way you interact with the world and other people, being able to heal by being upfront, view it in a different way, and basically finally let go and forgive yourself, which is really beautiful on an emotional level. But what happens is the confirmation we have in the Five of Pentacles. This then, once you have this ability and then use it on yourself, once you've practiced it with other people, and you're kind of too sensitive right now to do that, is the best way I can explain it. When you use this on yourself, we have the confirmation that you no longer are in that lacking mindset, which means you basically open up this huge window to essentially manifest whatever you want, and you can end up attracting in your life more opportunities. If you would like to meet more friends or romantic partners, you can. You're going to not only open yourself up in a physical, materialistic type of way, but you're going to have this huge amount of, it's very deep. My spirit guide described it. They said this karmic healing will be so deep internally that it will release a lot of blockages that will essentially open you up to other psychic abilities very naturally. So it's think of this as your boot camp that seems like it's a lot of work, and it's singular and slow. It's this one ability you're growing, and then all of a sudden it becomes this avalanche of things that you can do. And one of the things I do see you being able to do is shift through realities. So when you are, again, reading and you become observational, again, and this is important, observational without judgment, what ends up happening is wherever, this is what my spirit guides say time and time again, wherever your prolonged focus is, there you will go. So you will then be able to understand what is it that you want and need, be able to then focus your attention there. And this is where it gets really cool. I don't mean just purely focusing your attention and let's say you get into a headspace where you're constantly observing flowers, and then you put yourself into a reality essentially by being that person that's always receiving flowers, which is really cool. I mean, there will be a part of you that will be able to understand the concept of feeling what it feels like to move through time and space. This is something I talk about a lot whenever I talk about spirit realm travel and stuff like that. But this is something you will be able to observe, sense, understand, and then step into a lot easier because of this ability. And if you can basically change your reality at will, do you see the avalanche of potential other abilities you can have and experiences in life that you can invite into your own? I would say 180, but if there's anything stronger than that, it's a totally different position you're going to be in. I'd say, I can already tell you right now, I'm going to say 10 months, because this ability and healing is its own journey and experience, but then it pops off. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to know it. Please leave a comment, subscribe. Stay strong, because this is a place when you first begin at can feel difficult. Start small, start observing people. Be conscious when you read back or you think back to what you've observed. Was that done out of love and neutrality, or was it done out of assumption and judgment? And just always be in check with yourself. Practice learning to see things as they are without how you think they should be. And love you so much. I'll see you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 3. Group number 3, let's look at what psychic abilities do you need to tap into by looking at the cards. So we have 9 of Wands, upright. Ooh, the Hierophant. Sorry, the horns totally threw me off. The Hierophant though. And the Sun card. Ooh, this is a very interesting group of cards. Give me just 1 second to look at all the details of everything, and I will be with you in one moment. Okay. So first, let's start with the imagery we have over here with the Hierophant. Speaking of like how it looks, this is a very daunting version of somebody who's holding information. And my spirit guide was telling me that with you, this happens often a lot. It feels like there's someone in the way of someone or something in the way of you receiving information that you need. It feels like this individual is being like, hey, you've got to jump through these ropes. You've got to impress me. You've got to accomplish A before you get B. I've got to be in the right mood. Not unless you're a part of this. You've got to do this other thing. And it just feels kind of frustrating, unwelcoming. And to be honest with you, information is for everybody. Everybody is allowed to grow and learn and be whoever they want to be. And I'm just like putting this out there. Fun fact, anyone can literally learn the skills of someone else. That's the reality. So it feels frustrating when you feel like you're running into someone or like the situation where you're like, can you just stop being like this? Can I just have it? So interestingly enough, we attract things into our life that give us some awareness of what's like happening essentially. And sometimes we learn through contrast. So you're having this interaction regularly when you're trying to get the information you need in order to like grow something, gain some knowledge, gain some skills, gain ability, whatever you want. And you don't love when somebody is making what should just be handing over this feel like what we described before. This daunting, they're the leader of all this information. You get the gist. So when we learn through contrast, you go, well, what's the opposite of that? Because I now know what I don't like. What would I prefer? This is when your psychic ability taps in. Now this one seems really simple and you might not even realize it's a psychic ability, which is really cool. But essentially my spirit guide said that you are going to focus on honing in to the realization and the utilization that you are a magnet. And you are going to make yourself, like the sun, the center of your whole world. And let me explain this so that you can therefore practice it and hone in this psychic ability. But I want to expand off of it and what it actually means. So when you make yourself the center of your whole world, that means you are always at the center of your thought process. I don't mean like you reject a romantic interest because your desire for a career comes first. I don't mean like that. I mean that when you are interacting something with like a book, the thought of the internal part of yourself, like, your inner glowing being, that comes at the forefront of your attention even before the book you're reading. Again, if your brain is thinking, what about egotism? What about other people? Is that selfish? You're not getting it. And try the best you can to erase those thought processes. Those are judgments. Those are implying that if you think about yourself first, you somehow can't think of other people. A good example of this is like, think about how many like moms are really fantastic at taking care of the people they love or helping people like discover things about themselves or just like being there in general. But it is important for them to come first in their own lives and make sure that they get breaks and they have enough food and they have time to entertain themselves. Like, I think time and time again, we've seen that people feel like when they feel like the best version of themselves, whatever they want to do other than that feels a lot easier, and they feel like they can tap into it easier and more often, and you get the gist. So if you're having those thoughts we just described before, do the best you can to let them go. So stick with me here. The reason why you're going to tap into being a magnet and realizing what that is and being in connection with that as a whole is that your inner self knows exactly what you want, even before you do. It totally knows, and I don't mean in a way where, sometimes people want like a big opportunity and it doesn't happen, and they're like, I guess I'm just someone that isn't meant to have that big opportunity, or I wanted to become a chef and I guess that's just not going to happen now. I guess I just wasn't meant to be a chef. Not at all. You can totally be any single person you want to be, period, like we talked about before. But you might not have aligned or been happiest in that particular situation, position, working with those people, and it not working out is great because another opportunity is a better fit for you. So do you see what I'm saying here? It doesn't have to be limited to one situation or one circumstance, but you get the gist. But it's not even about waiting or don't worry, just believe, and in 6 months it will happen. Nope, we're throwing all those things out the window because technically time is not linear. We talk about it being linear, but it's not linear. Whenever I go to the spirit realm, you can pop anywhere in a second throughout all of time. So, going forward, erasing time, erasing the concern of if it sounds selfish, because we know your inner soul and being already knows what's up. If you focus your attention there, what you're doing is you're growing it like a battery. And you're also saying, hey, universe, when you're satisfying whatever I need to be happy, there's sort of like a list, if you will. Instead of saying, well, I think I need this to be happy, and I need this to be happy, and this to be happy, and this to be happy. Oh yeah, and then I'll also focus on myself and my inner being down here when I have time. No. If you just put your inner being at the top of the list, the universe goes, oh, well, you're putting so much focus and attention into your inner being and yourself. Okay, well then I will therefore give you your greatest desires and wishes, because your inner being at all times is reflecting what you truly want and what makes you happy and what makes you fulfilled and all your deepest desires and wishes, everything. And remember, we're going deeper past your blockages. We're going past anything that you might be in the way and preventing you because of your own personal past. We're talking about you're keeping it really simple. You're thinking of yourself as a glowing being, and you're thinking about that like all the time. And because the universe realizes you're putting that attention and focus into it, and internally in it has all of your wishes and desires, you're sort of like hacking the system of like making it a lot easier for you to get whatever you want, but you're also exercising deep trust that things don't need to work out in a logical way. It can seem like there's no options or opportunities are impossible, and somehow everything works out for you in extraordinary ways. You are practicing going beyond how you think things need to be, because again, there's a layer, there's like your inner being and then all the layers too. One of your layers is like, this is what I've observed in life thus far, so this is how it must be. But that doesn't actually make any sense, because there, at some point in time, in medieval times, in somebody's life, when they were observing their life around them, there wasn't really any proof that something else that could happen now could happen back then. So eventually somebody had to believe or be open enough that the impossible could happen. Do you see what I'm saying here? Do you get the gist? So, what is happening is you are practicing being a magnet. You're practicing that you don't even need to know you don't even need to know what it is that you really want in order to attract it and receive it. You don't really need to believe anymore in any limited ideas like time, things taking a while. You don't need to worry about your blockages being in the way. You don't need to worry about all the things that seem like they can't possibly work in your favor. And instead, you are going to learn that the simplicity of what we just talked about, turning yourself into a magnet by giving yourself prolonged focus, which means it will grow, which means the universe will respond to that. You get the gist. Opens you up to what we have over here in the Nine of Wands. This is a totally different demeanor than we have over here. Over here, this person has all of the information. Think of the wands as like everything they've worked hard for. This person, both of these people are the same in the sense that they are sitting on all of these skills and abilities and shortcuts that they went through the effort to learn. And this person isn't even hesitating to, I don't want to say bow down, because again, we're not saying like ego here, and to be clear, we're not trying to like promote that. It's more just this idea that there is a totally opposite direction of this person goes, what can you do for me? And this person's like, what can I do for you? And they are giving you not just what you need in the moment, like, oh, that's so nice of you. You offered a free cup of coffee that was available. This is the person going, yeah, here's the free cup of coffee. And let me tell you a trick of how to order it in the future. And if you'd like, you can shortcut to the bathroom. And next week, we're holding this like fun competition if you want to show up later and maybe you can benefit from being in the competition. Do you see what I'm saying? Like everything. So you not only redirect and reflow how you see yourself and interact with the universe and realize the simplicity and the power of it, but you change your access and what can basically and how it can flow to you in what you were looking for that goes beyond just information. You go from information to that and more. So it's like you're going to be a very big magnet. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to know. How can you be a magnet today? And like, comment, subscribe. I love you guys so much. And I'll see you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 4. Group number 4. Let's find out what psychic abilities do you need to tap into by looking at the cards. We have 7 of Swords in reverse, 8 of Cups upright, and the High Priestess in reverse. Okay, I'm already seeing a reflective mirror image, just like the reflection of this pond. Give me 1 second. This is already like flooding my brain. And I'll be with you in 1 second. Let me just look at the details of this. Whoa, this one's like, I don't know how to explain this any other way, but this is very like Jedi. Except I will say we're not trying to go for detachment. That's an important thing to remember when we get to this card. So both of these cards on the side reflect similar concepts. Both of them show stagnation, which is an important thing compared to this imagery right here. Now, in this card, in the 7 of Swords in reverse, and again, this is so interesting, this really shows how the choices we make in life and kind of where we focus our energy can then result in psychic abilities or are an effect or after effect of using your abilities. Like you're not aware that you're using them in that regard. And this is just like a perfect example of that. So in the 7 of Swords in reverse, this person is re-looking at their life and they're saying, what ideas, and it's like very heavily intellect based, what ideas, what belief systems, what information is no longer serving me? Because I need to let it go in order to create this mobility in my life. That concept of mobility and psychic abilities, we're going to get into details of that in 1 second, but stick with me here. So a good example of this is sometimes you gain information because it's helpful, but then later it can make you actually like paranoid. Like there's a point where it's not happening and you're like overusing it in that kind of way. Other times you think that it is helping you And in fact, it is making you view the possibility of what you could accomplish or experience as more limited, and you're like closing off your options. And these beliefs and ideas are not exclusively yours. In the Seven of Swords in reverse, this is very much like the lifetime and whatever you like. Every now and then you sort of do a clean out, so to speak, and you naturally pick things up. You hear what people have to say. It's always really good to be open and sort of collect what you find useful or speaks to you. But every now and then you have to check back in with yourself and be like, is this me thinking and feeling and believing this? Or is this what I heard? Or yes, this happened to someone else, but is this my experience? Or maybe it was my experience, but like, is that making me feel closer to myself? Is that gaining me more opportunities or abilities or love and connection to myself and others? You're basically doing a giant clean out. That's the same kind of regard with what we have over here in the High Priestess in reverse. This is again that same concept of letting go of people, like bad advice, like people who maybe you admired at one point, or again, same concept. A High Priestess in reverse can also refer to like gossip, and your same thing. Yes, it seems like really credible information because you admired the person, or because, you know, like again, that gossip seemed so juicy and interesting, but in reality, you're not really sure of where it was coming from, who was the person, and what was the state of mind they were in when they were experiencing that. Like, you know, that whisper down the lane effect of like, what was it that they perceived and how accurate that was? Do you get what I'm saying? And again, same concept. You're letting go of the part of you that's like, well, that's why I believe it. You're really looking through, and you're constantly asking yourself, why do you even buy that brand of cereal? Like, is that because that's what you've always done? And why do you do it? Where did that come from? Do you want to stop and take a moment and think, do you have to? Could you get that nutrition somewhere else? Or maybe you want to try out a different flavor and you never realized you weren't giving yourself that permission, and you'd like to, for fun, try something else out. Please feel free to leave your favorite kind of cereal in the comments below. I love cereal. It's so delicious. But you get the gist of what I'm saying here. But you're basically, the way my spirit guide described it is this process can be as long or as short as it is. And I will say this from personal experience, whenever you identify like a technique or a blockage, they're saying like redirect your attention this way, if you give it your full effort, the results can be in like a day or two, or it can take like, 8 weeks or 8 months, depending on how much you feel it's, I'm so sorry. Depending on how much you feel it's important that you end up, what's it called? Like in the moment, there's a part of you that's like, no, I can't let go. Fear really has me reusing this information and then putting it into action right now in this moment. And you have to tap into yourself and go, you know what? I don't think that's serving me right now. I'm okay. It's not making me feel great. I'm going to just let that go, and I'm going to try to exercise openness and let the situation be what it is and work out the way it is. Or you have a moment where you kind of say, let me try something else. Let me do something different. Let me see what the results are of that. Do you see what I'm saying here? But essentially, you're doing like a huge evaluation of over the next, again, the more effort you put in, the shorter of a time period it is. But you're just constantly like reevaluating, like, when you're interacting with things, do you feel like you're judging things because of a predispositional belief? And is it from you, or is it from somebody else that passed it down to you, like, ancestrally or something like that? And you're just going to constantly ask yourself, when you are just responding to things, why are you doing it? And is that how you really feel? And is it serving you anymore? And you're just going to do that like literally all day, every day. Clear out the system, start choosing something different, try other things, be open, let that wash over you, let things be what they are in the moment. You don't need to make such a stance. You get what I'm saying? You're letting it all go. But then this is when we activate from these interactions the psychic abilities, which is In the Eight of Cups, we see this really interesting like mobility suddenly happening in your life, which implies that there was stagnation before. And I want you to think of something really interesting. There's a way to view this traversing in different ways that will open up the sort of Jedi, very spiritual level, like next level of how to utilize your psychic abilities. We want to be conscious that how things actually work are not the way they work in the physical world. So when we think of momentum, we think of the part of like a person walking down a path and moving forward. And when we think of a blockage, we think of it like a brick wall in front of us and we're crashing it down. Now keep in mind, not everyone might view obstacles that way, but often this is a common terminology. People view it that way. They are moving forward physically and there's something in their way and blah, blah, blah. But instead, we want to observe this individual right here. They're realizing that they can't bring all of their swords on the boat. The weight won't hold it. And so they have to reevaluate what's the most important thing. Do they even need to bring any of their collection in order to then get to the next place they want to get to? And so then the question then becomes, was the blockage in front of them like an iceberg? No. It was an anchor holding them down that they didn't realize that was the thing pinpointing them down. So it's like a thing pulling them down, but not even with ropes. It's like their optional choice to carry it. So no longer is a blockage a wall in front of them or something tying them down. It is an active choice. They are choosing it. And they don't even realize it's the thing that they're like, man, why isn't there things coming into my life? Which again, we're going to review. This is where the psychic ability comes in. For many people, they view, and this is still true for many people. I'm so sorry. This is very true for many people. But we often have it described in manifesting that things come to you, that you get magnetically brought to you. And that can be the case for most people. And that doesn't necessarily mean in the long run that can't be the case for you. Everyone can have every psychic ability. I just want to put that out there. But I do want to put something else out there. For you, it's not so much about you exercising magnetism being brought to you, but you needing to walk towards it. Now, this is where it gets more interesting. For you, once you have mobility in your life, you will not only enjoy the feeling of like, when you go from feeling like you've got nothing going on to suddenly like you're being invited places and you're hanging out and you feel like you're writing a book and you're doing the next cool thing. And there feels like this sense of like you're moving forward. You feel a sense of momentum. That's just a good feeling. But for you, momentum, you gain growth from mobility. So again, it's not just like you simply moved or something like that, like a house, or you gained a new job. It's like this feeling of, oh, I'm no longer stuck. Opportunities are coming my way. Okay, those opportunities come with way more gifts. The gifts mean even more opportunities, and it's just growing and growing and growing. Every time you feel like you're not stuck, and there's always another thing you're walking into the next situation, walking into the next manifestation. Again, not it being drawn to you, but you walking into it. There's all of this, you receiving what you desire, but you're also it growing the more you stay in that continuous momentum. So this is where the interesting psychic ability comes in. You start to realize that these things like money, love, whatever it is your heart desires, parts of your personality you'd like healed or move on, are experiences. And you realize they're not things that you hold on to, but they're things you're walking through. And again, back to what we talked about in the beginning, not as in you are being detached and you're giving up and you're just totally kind of separated from everything and you become like a minimalist. I mean, no hate to minimalism. I'm kind of like an accidental minimalist myself. But the point is, you are realizing that there can be then the next experience and you enjoy it and you savor it and you get everything you want out of it. Then you're walking into the next experience, but you're very in that headspace of like, think of somebody who's like regularly nomadically traveling for like fun or work. You view it as like, okay, Now I'm in Spain. Now I'm in France. Now I'm moving forward into England. And you're just loving the next fun thing you learn there, gain, whatever. And again, you're not losing those other previous places you traveled by leaving them, but you are moving into the next thing that will give you something else the other thing didn't have. And you can always come back to the, first country metaphorically that you had and gain something you didn't have the last time. You are basically understanding through your psychic perception that you are able to create momentum. You are able to therefore see through this momentum and mobility that it's more than you feeling good, that it creates growth, that it's like a totally different way of like manifesting and navigating life. But what also happens is because you start to realize these are things, these are experiences that you don't have to worry about possessing, that you can enjoy and move forward, and you keep practicing openness, you keep being mindful of what's serving you and always cleaning yourself out in order to gain more momentum, to keep the momentum going longer so the growth continues and continues and continues. But you start to realize that your momentum and the growth it creates means that you don't have to go about living life the way everybody else does. So things are going to work in a much different way for you than they do for other people. Sometimes in a way that almost like doesn't seem like it makes sense. Sometimes you're working in a reverse in a creative way. Sometimes you're working towards something that leads you somewhere you didn't even anticipate. And there's just in general this headspace that you start to realize it's like, here's everyone living in society, and you start to realize there's like a layer and you can work outside of that layer. Again, very similar to the whole spirit realm traveling, which I would highly recommend because it sounds like you'd be pretty good at it, to be honest with you. But when you, for example, work in the spirit realm, you are bypassing universal laws because you're no longer in that like universe. You can basically do something else. That's what your mobility creates. You not only create a different view of manifestation, but this psychic ability enables you to interact with the world differently, which means that you can approach things in a more creative way, which means that you can have things work out in a way that other people can't see because you're more and more practicing. Again, this is like, you're like, wait, this is a psychic ability? Yes. This perception, this consciousness is more than just like higher consciousness thinking. It is like a very out of the box way of thinking. The best way I can explain it is essentially you have the ability mentally, physically, spiritually to use the back rooms. That's the best way I can explain it. So remember, constantly practice this to create mobility. You gain growth through mobility. The growth through mobility leads into a mindset. The mindset, the growth through the mobility enables this psychic ability to branch off beyond just gaining things from manifestation. And it just continues and continues and continues. So I love this for you. Very unique. I think the first time I've come across it. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. I love you guys so much. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good jazz. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.